Senate Bill SB 1433. Short title, Students Distance Learning Plans Funding. This bill was introduced by Senator MESNARD, and it will be heard in the House Education Committee on the 23rd. And let me tell you briefly what the bill actually does. It requires that students who receive instruction through distance learning plan be funded at the same amount as students receiving in-person instruction. And it does that regardless of or even if the expenses incurred are considerably lower. In other words, same funding, less teaching. And that does not make a whole lot of sense. However, as you folks know, by now the bills that succeeded in the Senate are being heard in the House and vice versa. This is a Senate bill. It will be heard in the House Education Committee. But it passed the Senate by a vote of 24-6. So it has wide bipartisan support. Why? I don't know.
I do.
Now, just for the record, there were six senators that voted against it. All 6 senators that voted against it were Republicans, and I'll tell you who they were. I'm going to out them, okay? Bartow, Livingston, Peterson, Rogers, Townsend, and Ugenti Rita. Apparently, these are only the 6 Republicans that actually read the bill. So, anyway, we're happy, or we're fortunate to have with us Diane Douglas, who, as most of you probably know, she was the superintendent of public instruction for 4 years. And she will be talking a little bit about what this bill does and why it's good or it's bad. We value her opinion.
Thank you very much. Appreciate being here, both of you. Once again, I can't even get my head around why there is such a bill as this. I mean, I understand why the school districts want it, absolutely, to keep the funding rolling in. And maybe if the funding level were the same, but it was cut to the lower level of online learning.
She's a comedian too. You guys didn't know that, did you?
That might be a better thing for our taxpayers. But the reality is, quite frankly, this remote learning that they have put our children under this, I call it a panicdemic, that was created. We've had the year-long anniversary now. Schools were going to be closed, till just the end of March 2020, and how much they're back depends what school district you're looking at and what they're having. But we're seeing already what an absolute disaster it is. I mean, if you look at our state test results, you can see we are abysmal at teaching our children English, teaching them to read, teaching them to write, teaching them to do basic arithmetic when they're sitting in a classroom. And now we're expecting kindergartners and first graders to learn how to read with a monitor and no attention. This is what we've done to our children is beyond the pale, and quite frankly, I'm thankful I'm not sitting in the superintendent's office because I would have no part of this anymore. But I can't imagine what our legislators are thinking to say, okay, schools, now you have an option. You can keep the kids out as long as you want, or let them do this alternative education, but we're going to give you the same funding for it regardless of what it is. There's no reason right now, right this minute, every student shouldn't be back, well, I would say in an education program. I don't think they should be back in schools that are failing to educate them.
Well, there's a few of those in Arizona also, yeah.
Unfortunately, the government monopoly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's anything else that I missed or Diane and I missed on this bill. Archie, did you spot any other?
Oh, I've got a couple of things. This bill will allow 100% of students to sit at home at the kitchen table and go to school. Now, if that's the case, we don't need school buses anymore. We don't need school bus drivers anymore. We don't need the mechanics who repair the school buses anymore. We don't need, the cost of buying tires and brake fluid and all of that thing for them. We don't need crossing guards anymore. We don't need the people working in the cafeteria preparing food anymore. We don't need the custodians and the janitors anymore. We don't need the elaborate school facilities that we currently have anymore. So maybe what we should do then is start to reduce the amount of funding that we provide to the schools. And then maybe the schools will decide that it's time for the students to be in class and receive the benefits of the social interaction that they get from being with other students. And that's one of the main things that 2020 should have shown us, that a student being out of school is not a good thing.
Well, and this is anecdotal, and I admit that honestly, but the things that I'm hearing from our schools, even with some districts that have returned to in-person learning, there was one example that was brought to me where the students were in a high school, the students were all brought into class to attend their class and open up their laptops, and the teacher was at home teaching them. So one way or the other, they're still remote, and this is just not an effective way. We know we have enough problems in our schools, and no disrespect intended to teachers, but our education system, I would say, is not effective, but actually if you study American education, we are getting the exact results that it was created and intended to achieve. We have to do better by our children, and this is a huge mistake, in my opinion.
And that's why we highly recommend that you folks at home who are watching this, that you contact your legislators, in particular the members of the House Education Committee, and express your opposition to this bill. And you can do that easily by going to my website, which is acpeopleslobbyist.com. And you can email your legislators, you can call them on the phone. Actually, you can even use the RTS, the request to speak system, because this bill is going to be heard in a committee, so they will accept comments regarding this bill at the RTS. So do everything you can if you agree with us, and hopefully you do, that this is not a good bill, and let it be known to those legislators so that they can vote this down. Keep in mind, regardless of what happened in the past, if the House Education Committee does not approve this bill, the bill will die. Okay, that's the way that it is set up in Arizona. So with that, please say no.
One other quick thought, may I add?
Go ahead.
I mean, and I understand the predicament that some parents are in and how challenging it may be for you when you're concerned about your children's health and all. But there are other systems. There are online learning academies that have been in existence for 10, 20 years, whatever the case may be. I mean, our school districts do not have big, effective means of providing this type of education. And I think if the legislature is going to allow this to happen, parents have to realize their children are probably never going to be in an educational environment as they have come to know it. This is going to totally dismantle it. And where maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's not. I'll hold my thoughts on that to myself. But the reality is things will never be the same, and it will not be in the best interest of your children.
And one last thought on this. Let's not forget the purpose why we're talking about this bill and what it does. And what we're looking at here is the funding. What the bill does is that it provides the same funding regardless of the level of education that they get.
Personal service.
If it's better to have, and if they're proficient at long distance learning, teaching, that's one thing. But what we're doing here is we're funding that at the same level as the more expensive in-person learning. And that is what the bill does, and that's what I, for one, object vehemently to.
Well, and another thing, Jose, now that we're taking a closer look at it too, is for programs that are online and they're charter programs. or they are district programs that are much smaller scale, they go through an approval process. This is saying students can exercise this option and districts can offer it without being an approved Arizona Online program. And that's very scary too.
Okay, so vote no, please.